Hi everyone, it's Mel from My Paper Oasis. I am here tonight finally to do another Sunday Night Live video with you tonight. Tonight I wanted to show you something called the stained glass technique on vellum. I created this card for Casing the Catty a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to show you how this look is achieved. We're going to use a different stamp set tonight. This one is from Rose Wonder, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but this is heat embossed with the white embossing powder, and it's on vellum, which you need to be a little bit careful about when you're heat embossing. Please make sure you don't overheat it, so keep the gun away a little bit, the heat gun. And then we're going to simply colour the background. So I'm going to show you how we do this. So this, like I said, is using the white embossing powder, and when you lay it on a white background, it really stands out. But tonight I wanted to use a different stamp set. Tonight I wanted to use our Floral Statement stamp set. This is a new stamp set in the annual catalogue that makes creating quick and easy cards really, really simple. So Floral Statements has a hello and a thank you, and as much as I love it, to really get the effect it needs to be on a white background, and you can't use the white embossing powder with this stamp set because then you lose the sentiment in it. So it needs to be a little bit different. So let me show you one I have created using this stamp set. And we're going to do a similar one shortly. So this is just on our simple note cards. So you get Whisper White note cards and envelopes in a pack, and there's 20 in a pack, and they're really reasonably priced. And they're a really great way to make quick and simple little cards. So this is the thanks stamp from this set. And as you can see, I've literally just stamped this one, and this is using our basic black archival ink straight onto the vellum. But I wanted to show you that you can actually emboss this if you wanted to. And the embossing gives it like a little bit more lift. It makes it look pretty snazzy, for want of a better term. That's my daughter's term that she uses. So I'm going to show you how you can use our basic black archival ink and still heat emboss it. So there's a couple of things, to think about when you heat emboss. So vellum, your ink will stay a little bit wetter as it is. So on vellum, this basic black will stay a little bit wet. So if you're just going to stamp and then flip it over and colour the background, you need to make sure that this is dry so it doesn't smudge and smear. So I would hit it with the heat gun anyway, or stamp it and let it sit to the side for a few moments. Because otherwise it will smear. Otherwise, hit it with one of these heat guns and it will dry really, really quickly. So let me show you what you need if you're going to heat emboss a basic black, because normally when you heat emboss you would use our Versamark ink, which is clear, and then you would emboss over the top. Now we don't have a black embossing powder, so we're going to use our clear embossing powder to do that. Okay, so the way we do that is I've got my stamp here. We're going to ink up with our basic black ink. Now, being that this isn't a foam pad, it's more like a felt pad, it's a little bit harder to get a good coverage on your stamps. So whenever you've got a big stamp like this, you're going to smear this ink on first. And you would do the same if you were using Memento, but you can't use Memento to heat emboss, so don't bother. So you give it a smear so it coats it first, and then you're going to go back in and really pat your image. Okay, so give it a good coat and a good pat to make sure that it is completely covered. And with big stamps images, I always like to turn my image over and then pat it with the ink pad. Remember to close these inks because they do dry fairly quickly. Okay, so you're going to get your little piece of vellum. Now this little piece of vellum, I'll have my measurements on my blog. I think it's 4 7/8 by 3 3/8. So that fits your note card. So you're just going to stamp your image down. So straight down, give it a bit of a press. It's a big image, remember? Okay, so give it a big press down and then lift it up so you can see that your image is there. Now I'm going to not let that sit and rest for too long. So I always just heat emboss in a piece of A4 paper. So I just sprinkle the clear embossing powder directly onto that while it is still wet. Okay, if you do it while it's still wet, it still works. And then you're going to tap off the excess. Now you can use your embossing buddy to stop it, you know, going anywhere else if you choose to. So you can see that that image is really quite cloudy now, and that's because the embossing powder has stuck to it. And then you need to hit it with the heat gun. Okay, so gently with the heat gun over the top, not too close, and you can hit it from the back as well, and that will keep your vellum quite straight. So I'm not going to do that on camera tonight. I'm going to set that one aside, and I'll do that one later. And then the easiest thing about this being in the A4 is you can just shake it all into the middle and tip it back into the pot. Just like that. See, very technical. You can have it in little pots and spoon it over your stuff and all of that, but I find that really simple, except when it gets all over your paper. Okay, so now we're just going to colour it in. Now to colour it in, there's a few things that you can do, but I'm choosing to use our Stamping Right markers. So these colours are Pear Pizzazz, this one is Wisteria, oh my gosh, Wisteria Wonder, Wild Wasabi. I have got Rose Red and Melon Mambo. So just a slight variation in the colours so that I can do a bit of layering. If you can see on here, you can see that there's darker green and there is a few differences in the flowers, although they're a bit hard to see on here. So here's one that I've prepared earlier. So this one you can see is heat embossed, so you can see it does work. Okay, so when you heat emboss it, hit it with the clear embossing powder and heat set it, it does emboss, and it makes it look like it makes it stand out a little bit nicer. And you can see I've started colouring it for you because otherwise it would take me far too long to colour on camera. And this time you can see a bit more of a marked difference between the colour differences. Now to get that, I've actually coloured these twice. So to do this, all you've done now, you've heated your front, is you're just literally going to colour, and you can see that I've coloured on the back of this image in the gaps. Okay, so you line up your images and you colour. So I've left this little flower up here that I am going to colour, and I'm just going to colour the different petals different colours. So you just kind of go around in whatever fashion you like. It's really good because the heat embossing will hide, you know, when you go out of the lines. So that's really, really nice. And it's really difficult to see what I'm doing on camera. So I'm just literally going to colour these. And I'm going to swap to the lighter colour now as well. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. So colour that in, and I don't want to go too dark with this lighter colour because I actually want to see the difference. So you don't have to be too fussy about it, and if you really wanted to, you could sponge the images as well. That would give you an even lighter kind of effect. So just a light colour in, and the main thing is you don't want any white gaps when you turn it over. Now what you want to do to get that darker effect is once that's sat a little bit, you just take your darker marker again and go over it again just to make it that extra bit darker. So it's really so simple, guys. There's nothing tricky about doing these little cards at all. And when you're doing them on, you know, your gift cards, on the note cards, they're just great for little gifts. It makes it so simple. Okay, so that's what I've done with the flowers to give the two different colour tones with the flowers. Now the leaves I've coloured in Pear Pizzazz, so that's the lighter of the greens. And then I'm just going to go in over the top with the Wild Wasabi. So I'm just going to do it like really roughly. I'm not fussy with this at all, guys. So it's just to give a little bit more definition, you know, to the leaves. So, you know, along the veins, you know, in darker spots under here, you might want to add a little bit more colour. It's really nothing technical about it. Have a bit of fun with it. And of course, you can use any different colours you like. I'm actually keen to have a go with some blues with this stamp set. I really love this stamp. It's a beautiful stamped image. And of course, you could, you know, stamp it straight onto the card and colour it and sponge it and watercolour it and do whatever you want to, you know, that way. But I really like the look of the stained glass. It just adds something a little bit extra, just a little bit of extra wow, I think. Okay, so that's as simple as it gets with the colouring. So you can see now that there's some distinct colours in the roses, and in the green. So when you turn it over, you can see it as well. But it really comes into effect when you pop it onto a piece of white cardstock. Now remember that the images at the back will be wet as well, so you don't want to move this around too much. So that is what it looks like when it's stuck down. Now vellum is fun to stick. Everybody knows that if you put glue dots here and here, you're going to see them through the vellum. So my favorite way to stick the vellum onto your cardstock is I just use a little bit of Tombow, and I'm going to, this one's just about empty. Let me find my full one. All I'm going to do is pop little dots of it where you're not going to see it especially. So I don't mind doing it a bit on here. You can actually sponge it, like put it on a sponge and smear it over, but you really want to make sure that your images are perfectly dry before you do that, or you're just going to smear pink around and green around on the back of the vellum, and you're going to see it. So I literally am quite happy just to pop a few dots where I've coloured and under the heat embossing, just with some Tombow. And that gives you a little bit of time to play with it as well. So a few bits of Tombow, and then you're literally just going to adhere it down onto your little note card front. So just like that. Give it a bit of a press for the Tombow to stick, and you're as good as done. Now for this one, I'm not going to use this. This is our mini sequins. So that's actually tied in a bow. You can actually tie those tiny, tiny sequins. They're tiny into a bow if you want to. Doesn't take too much. But for this card, I'm actually just going to adhere down the bit of the gold ribbon. I am just finding the tool to get my glue dot off. So a glue dot onto the back of my ribbon, and just going to pop it down there like a bow around a bunch of flowers, and that's it. Note card done. That quick and simple, guys. They're really not hard, but the stained glass technique is really, really pretty. So I encourage you to give it a go. You can see the difference now between the heat embossed and the plain one. Both look pretty. But really easy to do, and so easy with this stamp set. And of course, all you need an open stamp to colour. Okay, so whatever you're doing with this, you really need just a stamp that has lots of empty space that you know, you can colour in really, really easily. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thank you so much for watching again. I am hoping to be back fortnightly now, all going well again, with some different techniques and things for you, and different card making. I am popping an order in tonight, so if anybody wants anything, please comment below and send me an email so that I can do that for you. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week. If you have any comments for me, leave them below. That would be fantastic. I'll upload these onto YouTube this week, and I'll pop the measurements on the vellum for these note cards on there, and the colours that I used, so that you have a reference. Thanks so much for your positive comments, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.